All right, so the camera's set up on the tripod. I got my Ouija board. It's roughly 3:30 in the morning. It's time, I feel like, to try to communicate with the demons. Hello, demons. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, and this is Paranormal Activity. Yes, the idea of this has not been lost on me. That basically, this is this is how Paranormal Activity was made. Was a camera on a tripod, and I'm doing it, but I'm breaking the fourth wall. That's what's making this different. This is spooky season, and I'm revisiting Paranormal Activity for you guys. Another franchise that seems to be entirely audio described, like the Child's Play franchise, which is entirely audio described. Netflix only has, for some reason, like two on up. Weird. Anyway, but yeah, so Paranormal Activity, directed by Oren Peli, uh, famously budgeted at like 10,000. I want to say it was like $14,000, something like that. But at 10, around, really low budget. Basically, like I'm sure it was like catering, or the price of renting this house for a few days if they needed to, or if it wasn't already somebody's house. Like, I mean, there's very few things they had to pay for in this film, uh, and that's what kind of makes it impressive. And I remember seeing this in theaters. The marketing campaign for this was nuts, and it is now available on Max. It's also, I think, available on Paramount Plus. I think it's on both, but I watched it on Max. So Max, uh, for all of your Halloween needs. So yeah, this has audio description. I have no idea who produced it, but it's William Michael Redman. It doesn't have anything at the end of it. It just the film just like gives up and just fades off, and there was nothing, there was no studio. If I didn't recognize William Michael Redman's voice that well, I wouldn't even have known who did the narration for it. There was nothing at the end of this. I was like, well, that's weird. Um, uh, so yeah, this was released in 2006, 2007, something like that, 2006, something like that. Anyway, uh, and it was sort of a sensation. It dropped, and it had these ads that just showed like the audiences, like the test audiences, and their reactions to the film of like freaking out. Like instead of showing you the film and really explaining to you what the movie was about, it showed you just like it had a camera that was like facing towards the audience, and like as the movie was playing, it would show them like going like, like just freaking out. So the word of mouth on this before it was released was this was like the scariest movie like ever made. This was like the new Blair Witch Project. And to be fair, I like this movie more than Blair Witch Project because I think the casting here is a little bit better, and they don't like life choices are a little more believable here. Like all these films sort of rely on people to be making questionable life choices. And like for me, the Blair Witch Project, when he like kicks the map down and there's like a stream there, and they're like, well, there goes the map. I'm like, of course, I guess that had to happen. Here, my biggest question was, do they have a job? And does he ever go to work? Does she ever go to work? And at a certain point, it's like, why do you keep sleeping in this bed? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think probably for people who are like, I would have been gone from that house. I know that that one guy is like, there's no point in leaving because it'll follow you. And it's like, I would try. You bet damn well believe I would try. Some of this shit was happening. I'd be like, at a friend's house. I'd be like somewhere else. I'd be like, no, we will see if it actually follows me. We're gonna find out. And if I have to keep moving around for the rest of my life, if it's like a slow thing where it takes a while to find me, if it's doing its it follows slow walk, I will just move like every so often. We'll stay in hotels. I don't know, but I can't sleep. Um, so yeah, that's sort of like the biggest logical leap, but it's like you kind of understand why you need them to be here. I think probably if the film had had a bigger budget, you would have seen them use more than one bedroom. You would have seen that. You would have seen them go to a hotel room and then set up the camera in the hotel room and shit would happen in the hotel room. Um, but the limited location meant they pretty much just shot inside his house, which is the same thing like Skinamarink does later on. They're like, well, if we can stay in this one location, great, we'll save a lot of money. So, and uh, it didn't scare me like the first time through. I was a little unnerved. Certainly, yeah, more than Blair Witch Project. Blair Witch Project, I just when I saw it the first time, the phenomenon and everything of shaky cam, and I was like, I don't understand. I don't understand what you people see in this movie. I've since come to appreciate like conceptually what Blair Witch Project did for the game, like and how it changed. But I remember I was still like a teenager when that film came out, and I wasn't like thinking about like, is it changing the game? Is it reshaping cinema? No, I just kind of saw that film as being like, I was like, what? Y'all are crazy. This movie is, this movie is whack. Uh, and because we used words like whack back then, we heard crack was whack, and we knew that whack was bad because obviously crack was that was that the crime dog was his whole purpose in life was to tell us shit like that. McGruff, the crime dog. Anyway, I am old. Hello. Although, yeah, I think everybody knows that. Anyway, Paranormal Activity. It's good. It's solid. The thing about Paranormal Activity, um, first of all, I love William Michael Redmond's narration on this and his focus on the time and the clock and everything. Great. That way, it's basically happening at like the same time every night. He focuses on the days, the advancement of the days. So how many days later it is. Little details. The whole Ouija board scene is done really well. I've already seen this movie before, so like this was more of just me like checking boxes off and being like, well, how do we describe this? Well, how do we describe this? Well, how do we describe this? I felt like they did really well. Um, the one thing that I missed, and part of this is just like a sound balancing thing, and I think it's weird to say because 2006 definitely like we've been able to digitally preserve films like that. I feel like the film had some sort of sound degradation because it was harder to understand slash follow than I remember it being. Um, I did have my TV set turned up quite a bit to try to hear what these guys were saying with the main. First of all, I knew that for the most part, there were no going to be no like sound jump scares, so I was pretty safe. Like having seen this one before, I knew like I was like most of the shit's at the end. So except for like a slamming door, there wasn't really there's not much here. Uh, so until the end of the film, and then you get probably most of the stuff. But that's when maybe the TV gets a little loud. So I did turn it up, but I really couldn't understand what they were saying. It was very muffled, and I think there was one time where they kind of like looped into her voice, and people like picked up on it, and that was sort of like a hint at something nefarious that happens like towards the end of the film. And I missed that this time around. I was like, did that happen? Where did I didn't catch it, and I don't know if it was because the sound was weird for me. It wasn't inaudible. Like to be totally honest, it's not the way that I'm saying like with even like the Hunger Games movies or with Sinister, which is on Max. It just has the most totally unwatchable totally pointless audio description track of all time. The most pointless audio description track of all time because you actually cannot hear the movie. It's like almost I had that volume up so loud, so loud, and the loudest Sinister was getting was, we gotta go into my house. It's like, what are they saying? At first, I couldn't hear anything. At first, I literally thought it was just the audio description track because I had it like a normal volume, and I heard nothing. And turned the volume all the way up, and it's just like, fuck you. Anyway, Paranormal Activity, it's just because it was low budget and they filmed it with kind of like shitty handheld equipment. The sound quality was never great, and it just kind of, yeah, no, it's just kind of, it's a little bit more muffled than it once was. It's perhaps more muffled now, um, at least than I remember it. I think, especially considering my first viewing of this was in a theater with like surround sound and everything. A little bit of a different experience, but uh, I don't know that Paranormal Activity is necessarily a film I love sitting down and rewatching over and over, but it's been long enough for me that I I really appreciated it. I also consider Paranormal Activity to sort of be a benchmark in horror films because it again restarted the trend that Blair Witch had kind of died out after Blair Witch. It just kind of came in and was like, okay, we're doing this again. And then we had like a whole new slate of found footage movies, including like a massive franchise behind Paranormal. I mean, the Paranormal Activity franchise far beyond the Blair Witch franchise. So, and made way more money at the box office. Like when all is said and done, this franchise just did extraordinarily well. And it really goes to show what you can do with $10,000 at the box office too, when you make a film, because the actors feel real. They feel these are actually two believable performances. My only quibble is with brushing your teeth. I like, it doesn't even sound like she's brushing. It sounds like she's like pretending to brush her teeth. But other than that, like everything else is, and that and the fact that you're like, what do you do for a living, and how are you able to be home this much? And then have you tried a hotel room? Like, did you try a hotel room to see whether or not, I anyway, couple little things, but no, I think Paranormal Activity is definitely a film I would recommend for anybody who hasn't seen it before. I think it's definitely worth a one-time watch. Just like I think Blair Witch, actually, even though I don't like it, I would say, yeah, absolutely, watch the film. You should know what this film is. Definitely for people who are like, oh, I want to be a film buff. I want to make sure I'm checking off. That's what I mean when I say benchmark films. Is I feel like not all benchmark films are going to be like the 100 best films of all time. Do you know what I'm saying? They're not all going to be things like Seven Samurai. They're just some of the shit you have to watch are going to be films like Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity, so that you understand like what was happening pop culture wise at the time and what directors were doing with very little money and shaking hands, and how independent film was breaking in and making really disrupting, because if anything, Paranormal Activity and Blair Witch are both disruptors. People who were outside the industry ended up selling their little tiny movie, and then that little tiny movie ended up making like over 100 million at the box office. So, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot about this film that it's earned its place in film history, and I would recommend it to anybody who is trying to get their uh, cinephile on and maybe start up a channel. It's like, I would say you have to watch Paranormal. I don't know that you need to watch the entire franchise. I'm going to this Halloween. That's what one of the reasons I'm here. But um, you got to see at least the first one. So I now that I've seen this film twice, I still think it works. I think, especially for me, like if I'm picking between the two, I pick Paranormal Activity all day, every day. I don't know. I think it just works better for me. But yes, I can nitpick. I could nitpick at this film, and because I can nitpick at this film, I don't need to take it to a desert island with me. But I respect the hell out of the film. And I love the fact that William Michael Redmond is narrating this, because you'll never hear me go, oh, I didn't need him on this horror movie. Like, he to me is, I whenever I'm about to click on a horror movie, I'm like, please let it be William Michael Redmond. I'm just like, and it was. And I was really excited about that. So, um, yeah. But I'm gonna give Paranormal Activity an A minus because, like I said, there are a couple things here where it's like, yeah, you probably could have gone a little differently and made it a little um, more realistic. Because I think again, nobody would have stayed there night after night. They would have at least tried to stay at a friend or go to a hotel room or something like that, and just to see whether or not that whole thing was true. Whether or not will the demon follow me to Days In? You know, let's find out. Let's take the camera with us and see if whether or not it follows. Um, but and then what do they do? Like, what do you do for a living? Anyway, but that's it. Yeah. So check it out. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. Um, but it's especially during spooky season when it has audio description and you're looking for things to watch. It doesn't not translate for blind people. It's fine. I mean, as long as you know going in that you're watching a film that was shot for $10,000 and just think conceptually that that's what you're watching the whole time. If you go into this film and nobody's told you that, and you're like, wow, this film had a budget and it's like this the whole time. This is shitty. It's like, well, yeah, this would be shitty if they spent $10 million on it, but none spent $10,000. So I hope somebody told you that. My reaction for this would be completely different if this movie had a like a $10,000 budget. I'd be like, what? And where did on what? Like, what did you spend it on? Did you buy the house? Like, is it in like a really wealthy neighborhood? I don't understand. Anyway, yeah, I would wonder where that money went. But yeah, for $10,000, it's a one hell of an achievement. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.